Good morning and welcome to the Alabama Works webinar series, a monthly webinar designed to provide information and speakers related to the workforce in Alabama. Past webinars are available on the Alabama Works website at alabamaworks.com. And now your host, Tim McCartney, Chair of the Alabama Workforce Council.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us on this August 2021 Alabama Workforce Council monthly webinar. Today, we're very happy to bring you an exciting lineup of speakers. First up, we'll have Mrs. Rosemary Elabash of the National Federation of Independent Business, the NFIB, and she will give us an update on how Alabama's small and independent businesses are navigating the COVID-19. After Rosemary, we'll have Mr. John Palish, former U.S. Secretary of Labor, who's going to give us an update on his current work to connect the education, workforce, and human services systems to help establish a national one workforce solution. Following Mr. Palish, we have Mrs. Amara Harrison and Dr. Chris Cox, who will give us an update on the Alabama Community College System's Innovation Center, where they are working to develop a short-term workforce programs across Alabama. Next will be Mr. Tony Wojciechowski, who will provide an overview of the operations of Hyundai Power Transformers, where he is the Director of Human Resources. And today, we're going to be missing Nick Moore. He has some other duties to do, but we'll have his assistant, Mr. John Gilchrist of the Governor's Office of Education and Workforce Transformation, to provide us the monthly update on employment in Alabama. So without further ado, Ms. Rosemary Elabash from the NFIB, the floor is yours.
Good morning, Tim, and thank you for having me on today. I do want to share with you some information that was released by NFIB last week about the status of small business owners and where they are right now post-COVID. What we learned in our national survey is that 49% of owners are looking for workers, and this is a 48-year high. The other thing we've learned is that there are more job openings than there are people seeking employment at this point. So that creates a huge problem, particularly for small business owners and for those that are in rural areas that are likely not encountering those that are already ready to go to work or hopefully ready to go to work. The other thing that we're seeing is this is impacting sales. So when you don't have enough people to work and you can't keep your business open, then you're not selling product or you're not performing a service that a customer may need. So this is going to really impact the economy in the long run, not right now because of all the federal dollars, but because in the long run it will hurt. On a more localized front, I did a post-COVID survey just of Alabama members. And to remind everyone in the audience that 99.4% of businesses in Alabama are considered small businesses. The SBA determines that by 500 or fewer employees, but the average in Alabama is about 20 employees or fewer. So we have many businesses across the state that are small independent business owners. What I learned in this survey, and this survey was taken in June and early July, that 84% of people that answered the survey had 50 or fewer employees. 91% of those employers have a job opening, and 93% of them are having trouble finding a qualified worker for this. Another question I ask is, are you increasing salaries or benefits? 75% of these businesses, and these are 50 or fewer employees, have increased their salaries, their benefits, and they're offering a sign-on bonus. And they still can't get people to come to work. So this is a huge problem for all areas. I will tell you that small business owners, because they're not publicly traded, they can change their business model overnight. And many of them are adapting to not having enough employees. And I'm going to give you a few examples. I have a member over in West Alabama. Her square footage right now is 9,500 square feet. She is reducing it to 4,000. She can't find enough people to work, So she's going to get a square footage, reduce her inventory so she can manage that shop with just one other employee instead of 5. She is also closing an extra day a week in order to cover her shop. There are other businesses, and those of you who are around Montgomery or in other areas, one of the most notable places is Chick-fil-A. And small business owners are franchise owners. The Chick-fil-A at East Chase closed down for 2 months. They have rerouted their parking lot. They have reduced parking. They now have 3 drive-throughs, and they are taking orders all by iPad. So they will adapt to not having an in-person dining. The thing that I've heard from some of these franchise owners, particularly in the food business, if you don't open your dining room, then you don't have to have employees cleaning tables, taking out trash. You're not dealing with unruly employees, and they have a lot of those unhappy people. So as long as they stay in their car, they're able to move those through pretty quickly. I also have a Chinese restaurant here in town. They closed their dining room at the beginning of COVID. You order at the door. I asked if they plan to reopen their dining room, and they said no, that they would continue to order from the door. Is working for them, and they will manage with what they have. So you can see that they are very innovative, and you will continue to see changes like that. I do want to tell you that I have partnered very closely with the Alabama Community College System, and I want to tell everybody in the listening audience that they have been so open to helping small business owners adapt in this environment. And one of the things that we really want to highlight, and Amara and Chris will talk about this, one of the things that I have heard over the years from grocery store owners is we don't have enough meat cutters. And it kind of fell on deaf ears, I can tell you, before Chancellor Baker took over. So now through Mara and Chris and this new credentialing program, and with the Alabama Grocers Association, we're going to have a butcher school in Alabama. And for all of you to know that there are more than 800 grocery stores in this state. They all need a meat cutter. So the community college system has come to the rescue. They are also partnering with the Alabama Restaurant and Hospitality Association, and they're going to do these quick credentials that allow them to work with them and use a national curriculum to quickly get people in the workforce. So I say all this to say that our big stumbling block, and this is like a problem that seems to be difficult to overcome, is the accreditation system. And I will tell you that I don't think the accreditation system is looking at the workforce needs of today. They are still stuck in the past about this is the things you have to do in order to get an accreditation. And I think we're going to have to move the needle on the accreditation system to quickly get people in the workforce so they can get college credit for these non-credentialed credentialing systems that we are now putting in place. So I really want to thank the community college system for stepping forth and saying, let us help small business owners as they maneuver through these tough times, and let us quickly get people in the workforce and get them as tax-paying citizens. So Tim, thank you for allowing me to share this morning. This is an ongoing problem, and I will tell you that NFIB is ready to partner with any group to help us get employees into our workforce.
Well, thank you so much for that, Rosemary. That's great information, and it certainly jives with a lot of the people I've talked to. I talked to a man this weekend, had a small business, and he said he worked a 30-hour shift to keep one of his stores open this last week, and he's suffering from the same thing. So I think it's great what the community colleges are doing, what the NFIB are doing. We want to partner with all of y'all, and we do partner with you. So anything we can do to help at the Workforce Council, we want to help. So thank you again for that message this morning.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we'll turn the program over to the former U.S. Assistant Secretary of Labor, Mr. John Palish. John, are you ready?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Tim, and thanks to everybody for letting me join today. Got a quick PowerPoint here, but I promise you it's not a traditional PowerPoint, so I won't be boring folks with a lot of verbiage. But it's excellent to have Rosemary kind of lay the foundation and speak the truth of what everybody on this call knows, which is we don't have enough skilled labor. Quite candidly, this has been a problem dating back to before the pandemic. As Tim mentioned, I had the opportunity to serve at the Department of Labor from July of 19 through January of 2021. And in December of 19, when unemployment was 3.5%, businesses were calling and saying, we need more people. Here we are today, unemployment's 5.4%, and businesses are calling and saying, we need more people. It is workforce's job to provide that skilled labor. I firmly believe that business and industry has an insatiable thirst for skilled labor. So the more efficient we can be, and I include myself in the workforce community, the more efficient we can be in turning out skilled labor, the more business and industry is going to hire those individuals and grow their businesses. So it's interesting when I saw the title of Workforce Innovation Beyond the Buzzwords, I thought that's interesting because in workforce, we like to talk a lot about buzzwords. So before I get into that, let me just give you a very brief background on myself. I promise not to drone on and on and on. I had the opportunity to serve at the Department of Labor under President Bush from 2001 through 2009. After that, we were told not to come back to work in January of 2009. I then went to work for the DC State Superintendent of Education because I really wanted to focus on education. I wanted to better understand why the education system wasn't creating work-ready individuals. That's not to say that everybody coming out of K through 12 is going to work. Some are going to a certificate program, some are going to a four-year degree, some are going to an apprentice program. But why was education struggling to just give the basic skills that individuals needed? From there, I went to work for a nonprofit education reform group called Students First. Some of you may remember an individual named Michelle Rhee. She was very much the poster child for education reform in the early 2000s. Not very much liked by some groups, but had some real innovative ideas on teacher accountability and school accountability and getting to that issue of why aren't we turning out better students from our high schools. After that, I had the opportunity to run the Kentucky State Workforce Agency, which was my first foray into workforce at the state level. And it gave me a very clear idea that Kentucky was backwards and broken. We were getting tens of millions of dollars from the federal government. We were supplementing that with millions of dollars from the state government, and we were just doing a really bad job of meeting the needs of employers. From there, I had the opportunity to go to the Department of Labor and run the Employment and Training Administration, which is the national workforce program. And unfortunately, what I found there were many other states, if not most states, that were in the same situation that Kentucky was. That they just weren't being effective. They weren't being efficient. There are billions and billions of dollars flowing through, just the agency that I was responsible for, about $11 billion a year going out in workforce. And we just weren't getting the return on it. And as Rosemary mentioned earlier, there's the federal money will run out at some point where we're seeing massive amounts of money coming in from the CARES Act and the ARP and this supplemental bill and that supplemental bill. And my fear is that we continue to put more money into a system that's not efficient. And all we're getting is more inefficiency from that system. So it's good to be here to talk to you all about kind of my broader vision for workforce, but equally as important, some of the really interesting things you all are doing in Alabama. So as I mentioned, a lot of the buzzwords that you've heard for decades in workforce, we talk about sector strategies and career pathways, talent pipelines, upskilling, everything has to be citizen-centered and business-driven. And these all sound really good and we say them a lot. But I can tell you from my experience in Kentucky and from my experience in DC, the workforce system broadly does a very bad job of actually living up to the promise of those words. And what I'd like to hear us talk more about is I'd like to hear us talk more about things like data sharing and the integration of IT and data systems. I'd like to hear us focus on it and highlight the strong leaders out there, whether those are business leaders or government officials or workforce partners or whomever they may be, folks who are really stepping up and saying, hey, we want to lead in our community or in our region or in our state. We need to, especially coming out of the pandemic, we need to embrace this idea of online technology, online training. Everything does not necessarily have to be in a classroom. Everything does not have to be an individual going to a training provider. And just one of the mantras that we tried to impress upon the folks here in Kentucky is this idea of no wrong person, no wrong door. So that when an individual is coming to the state or coming to the workforce community for help, it doesn't matter who they interact with. That person can help steer them on a path to success. And that gets to the idea of one workforce. And one workforce is actually an idea we started talking about here in Kentucky. When I went to DC, I started to weave it into a lot of the grant programs that DOL was pushing out the door. And really what it was is, as Tim mentioned in the beginning, it's just this idea that we're serving one workforce, whether that's through the SNAP E&T program, whether that's through the Department of Corrections, whether that's through HUD, HHS, Department of Labor, Department of Education, you name it. All of those federal programs exist to help individuals better themselves, create self-sufficiency, economic independence, and get a job. So how do we as the workforce community realize that we're just serving one workforce and stop trying to label individuals as, well, you are a SNAP E&T customer, so you can only go in this box over here, or you're a dislocated worker and you have to go in this box over here. It's our job as a workforce community to better serve that customer with all of those programs. And that's really the idea behind one workforce is let's start to think as though we're serving one workforce, not as we're serving multiple state and federal programs, because that becomes very convoluted, very confusing. Quite frankly, the customers don't understand it. We shouldn't expect them to understand it. It's our job to let them know what's available to them and shepherd those resources to help them get back to work. So when I talk about one workforce, the things I'm talking about, and this was a mantra I repeated over and over in DC, when I was talking to the folks in ETA, every program, every grant, every policy we were putting in place, we had to ask ourselves three questions. Does this increase opportunities for the customers? Does it enhance the accountability of the program? And ultimately, and most importantly, are we improving the outcomes of those we serve? In a slide or two, I'll talk a little bit more about outcomes. Workforce does a really poor job of producing good outcomes. We measure some outcomes and we like to talk about those, but are they really the outcomes that business needs? And I would contend, and I think some folks on this call would agree that workforce in general is doing a very bad job of creating the outcomes that we need. Some of the things that I like to look at, and I would encourage you to look at when you're thinking about workforce and how efficient and how effective is our workforce efforts. You know, one of the things that I wanted to get Department of Labor to start measuring, and you know, it hasn't happened yet, maybe it'll happen in the future, is what does it actually cost to create a positive outcome? You know, we shovel a lot of money out the door in different grant programs, through different federal programs, but there's no way to measure how much is it going to cost us to get a positive outcome from that program, whether it's a reentry program or an opioid recovery program, dislocated worker, upskilling, whatever the program is. How much is it going to cost? Is it $1,000 a positive outcome? Is it $10,000 a positive outcome? We have no idea. So we have no way to know which programs are working and which programs are effective. One of my favorite measures that I like to look at that a lot of folks don't look at in the WIOA program, which is the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, which is the big national workforce program, about $3.4 billion a year, is there's a measure in there called training related employment. And basically what that means is the training that we provided to the individual, what percentage of those individuals got a job related to that training? And the numbers that I have up there for the adult program, the dislocated worker program, and the youth program are the national numbers. So in the adult program, a little over $1 billion, 33% of the people that we trained actually got a job related to that training. If you look at the youth, it's basically 1 in 5. So when I talk about inefficiency and ineffectiveness, that's what I'm talking about. If with no additional dollars, if we were just able to turn that training related employment to 100%, because we as a workforce community were in touch with the business community, and we said, hey, if we train John and we give John these skills, will you hire them? We're going to have 3 or 4 or 5 businesses saying, yes, we will hire John. So that training related employment is going to be 100%. If we could just triple the number of adults going back to work, triple the dislocated workers, and 5-fold increase on the youth, that right there immediately helps meet the need that business has. We talk a lot about the unemployment rate, but really the thing that we should be looking at is the labor participation rate. Nationally, it's a little over 61%. Alabama, it's a little over 56%. So that's where we need to focus. Again, when we're talking about one workforce, we're talking about bringing in transition veterans. We're talking about folks coming out of the criminal justice system, folks dealing with opioid recovery, folks who are dislocated. All of these different programs, they're all part of that labor participation rate. So we need to look at them as one group. And then as Rosemary mentioned, last month, the Department of Labor, or Bureau of Labor Statistics, but an agency within the Department of Labor told us that there's 10.1 million job openings right now. There's about 12 million people on unemployment insurance. So again, we've got 10 million open jobs that the workforce community is just failing to fill. So how do we as a workforce community move forward? And more importantly, how is Alabama already doing this? As I mentioned, we have to follow those who are willing to lead. And in Alabama, you have an excellent example of this with the Governor's Office of Education and Workforce Transformation. As Tim mentioned, Nick won't be able to join us today. John's joining us, but Nick and I have had a lot of conversations about the really good things that the Governor's Office has been thinking about and putting in place in Alabama to start to move things forward, to start to bring together education and workforce and human services and really to transform it. And that's exciting to me. We need to improve our data and technology systems. When I was in Kentucky, we set out to create a single case management system for all of our workforce programs, as well as our SNAP E&T customers, so that if nothing else, we could case manage those individuals in one place. So again, back to that concept of no wrong door, no wrong person, regardless of who they talk to, we could pull up the information and we could see the information that we needed about them to help them. Again, Alabama is leading the way in some of the systems, and I don't want to steal John's thunder down the road, but you've got the Atlas system, you've got the Asset system, you've got David's system. You are already starting to put in place the data and technology systems that you need to really move workforce forward. And then the last thing that we need to do is we've got to ensure that the policies and procedures are there to really bring about one workforce. And when I think of Alabama, I think about the exciting things with Hyundai and AIDT and Transfer VR, which is a virtual reality training company, and some of the things that you're already doing on the ground to help train individuals for the jobs of today and tomorrow. So there's a lot to do in workforce, but there's a lot of exciting things happening in Alabama. That's why Tim and I have had conversations before. We will continue to have conversations likewise with Nick and the Governor's Office, because I want to help anybody who's raised their hand and said, hey, we want to do better. We can do better. We want to do better. Help us do better. Those are the groups, those are the states that I'm looking to work with. So that's it in a nutshell. I appreciate the time. Obviously, if you've got any questions, I think Jill or somebody will share this deck, so you'll have my email address. Feel free to shoot me emails. Happy to answer any questions. But I appreciate the time and I appreciate the conversation, and anything I can do to help Alabama, I'm all for.
Well, John, thank you so much for your message this morning. Also, thank you for your leadership. You've done a lot of great work, and we look forward to continuing the conversations, because Alabama certainly does want to be one of those groups you're talking to, because we've got to make improvement, and we've got people here that need jobs, and we've got employers that need workers. So we've got to match those two along with all our educational institutions and training programs. So thank you so much, and we look forward to having you back soon, okay? And next, I'm going to turn the program over to Ms. Amara Harrison and Dr. Chris Cox of the Alabama Community College System. Mara, are y'all ready to go?
We are.
Great.
And good morning. Thank you for having me. I think this is very appropriate timing. And John, I think you'll be really excited to hear what the community college system is doing in response to some of those initiatives that you just mentioned. So I have a PowerPoint to talk to you about something that's very exciting in the system office, and it's called the ACCS Credential Initiative. And First off, thank you very much, Rosemary, for those very kind words. We have been working hard toward the ACCS credential. And I'm going to try and give you an overview from a higher level today about what exactly this ACCS credential initiative is. But you should also know that my title is Special Assistant to the Chancellor for Education to Workforce Transformation, but have also accepted a new title to serve as the Interim Director for the Innovation Center. And that was part of the invitation today, is to discuss the Innovation Center. There is a physical presence of the Innovation Center, and it's located in downtown Decatur. Right now we're under construction, and but the deliverables of the Innovation Center do not have to, they don't require a building or a physical presence. So that's why we're able to get started on the some incentives like the ACCS credential now. This construction should end in about 18 months. That's our projected time. And at that point, it will have its staff to be able to produce things to assist the colleges in being able to provide effective training. So you should know that the most important thing that the Innovation Center is creating right now is custom curricula that is applicable for businesses. And this is not curricula that the colleges have just decided to write on our own and implement. And this is not a program status of if we build it, then people will come to it. These are actual, this is actual content, sits in a virtual setting, so that accessibility can be favorable for people who might not be able to have access to community college training, and the time can be completely delivered in a hybrid model, so you can have literally training happening any place in the state. This custom piece is really important for us because we don't create it unless industry associations ask for it. And that it's not a new concept for our community colleges, but it is new to have this in a statewide delivery system. So we're very excited about all of these prospects. And for you to know exactly why this is a big deal, you should know sort of the things that the community colleges are responsible for. And that is that we serve the entire community. And so we offer employment opportunities through our education and training programs on a lot of different levels. We have entry-level training, which we usually reserve for our adult education students or students who may have barriers to education and training. And then we offer non-credit rapid training. That is, that's usually the next upskill for a job. Then we get into our credit-bearing programs. And these are all that are vetted by accrediting agencies like Accs COC, kind of a governance outside of the community college system that gives us value as to what exactly we are producing with our associate degrees or with these short certificates. And so we always have the goal of occupation attainment, but this ACCS credential award sits in the non-credit world. And that's important for you to know because it's the job of the community colleges to make sure that we not only engage a student, but that we provide an opportunity for them to go as far as they possibly can. So we would not want them to stop with the job attainment that might come at entry level or during this non-credit ACCS credential training. We want them to complete as high as they can go. We'd like them to go past our community colleges onto a four-year college or university and be able to just continuously educate themselves and upskill for jobs that require a little more skill, a little bit more education. So with our ACCS Credential Award, it sits in this non-credit category, but with the award comes some articulated credit toward the next step. So we will identify the training programs that need to happen in this rapid non-credit world, but then we'll also allow for some articulated credit so that a student would be able to go up to the next level and upskill, and that would land with our short certificate. And generally that is about a semester long, sometimes 2 semesters long. Then we'd want to help our students be able to progress into the associate degrees and going forward from there. So Rosemary gave us some very flattering comments, and I'm very grateful to her for that. And we have worked really hard. And one of our first programs has been to partner with the Alabama Grocers Association for butcher training. And we really didn't know at the time that so much training was requested by grocery store owners for butcher trainings, but it's also for processing companies that might have need meat cutters to be able to work in a processing plant in the manufacturing world in the state of Alabama. So what we have done has been to meet with the members of the Alabama Grocers Association to find out what training needs to look like for butcher training. So far, none of our colleges have trained for butcher training, so this is a new training for us. But what we've done is written content that features Alabama businesses and is 100% based on what the Grocers Association memberships have told us that they want to see in the training. And that is something that makes it really easy for the butchers or for the grocery store owners to be able to have ownership into this training, because it's theirs. It's not the community colleges. These are Alabama businesses who designed it. We are just the delivery method of it. And so this content sits in a virtual setting, this curriculum, and it can literally be trained any place in the state of Alabama. So on any college campus, but then also in a warehouse setting or in varied parts of the state, so that students who might have not been able to have access to education and training because of where they live can now have access to that. But when we look at creating this content, we want to also make sure that we are allowing an opportunity for a student to see their next level of upskill. So in this state, the butchers who work for grocery stores would then be given an opportunity, if the company wanted to upskill them, to become a supervisor of the meat department or a supervisor of the butchers that are working in that division. And so we want to be able to allow them to come into our business programs that would teach them some skills that would require people management or cost efficiency. And those are things that we teach already in our credit bearing programs. And so we just would want to enhance those and make sure that we say that to a student. You can come and get this very quick training, but then if you prove to be a valuable employee, then you might want to upskill and be able to become a supervisor of all of the butchers at the grocery stores. And we want to make that process as easy as possible for you. So sometimes we feel like advertising the wages, the average wages that a butcher can make, and the opportunity for upskill is sometimes enough to get a student into a program where they need immediate employment. This ACCS credential is going to make sure that every single community college will be able to deliver this in rapidly delivered non-credit training programs. So again, these are programs that are for people who need jobs right now, and they are for employers who need to hire right now. So the delivery method will be as fast as possible. We won't have to be able to schedule according to an educational plan, which sometimes is semester-based. These are programs that can happen at any time during the day, at any location around the state, and still be able to provide an opportunity for students to join those. Now this is something that Rosemary discussed also about the qualities of a credential. If we talk about our outside agencies that govern our credit-bearing programs, then we know that they have certain criteria that our degreed programs have to match in order to be determined a valuable credential award. And remember, a credential is given, it can be a degree, it's a high school diploma even, but it also is awarded to indicate that someone has mastered a specific set of skills. And so in butcher training, the ACCS Credential Award would be provided to a student who has completed the training and has now been able to master a specific set of skills that the Alabama Grocers Association members have told us they would like them to be able to do. And this can happen in any program. Currently in the US, there are lots of ways, lots of accrediting agencies who do that for colleges, but there has not been a way to be able to determine the value that's associated with a program in the non-credit world, which means that most anyone can do that training. I think that Alabama was the first state to be able to adopt a definition that was defined by the National Skills Coalition to be able to say what exactly is a quality credential. And so our ACCS credentials will be vetted against this same criteria. And really, these are just kind of very simple things to just make sure that employment opportunities are created for credential holders, for the people who pass the butcher training. There are jobs available to them, and that they get jobs at the end of the training. The training program has to be developed in a partnership with business and industry associations, and this is why the butcher training for us is such a specialized training program, because it's not something that the community colleges created. It is something that the Alabama Grocers Association members designed. You also, part of the requirement is that we need to track data. And this is something that I think the state of Alabama is making tremendous gains toward, to be able to track employment. Do people get jobs from these, and how long do they keep these jobs? And then for us, we want to know about the next step. We want to be able to offer an opportunity for a student to be able to come quickly in and see the stackability for this, that now they can become a student in our credit bearing programs if they want to upskill, or their business would like to send them to college for upskilling. So for our work, this all aligns to the work of the ACCCP. So it matches all of the information that we've been working on for a couple of years now, with pathways and in-demand occupations, competency models, and career pathways and lattices. The examples of the butcher training would be, a butcher can stay in the grocery world, or they can go down the manufacturing route, and that's where the career pathway would become a lattice, where we just sort of branch out so that the skills that were obtained in a specific training program are now applicable for the next upskill. And that usually indicates a higher wage. This specific ACCS credential status is going to earn the valuable credential status that Alabama has determined, because it meets those 10 quality assurance criteria. And we'll make sure that they are reviewed every year, so that if we are finding that jobs are not, that this training is not occupation relevant, then we'll make changes to it. Because we want it's not really providing any value to any of us or any of the participants if they're not actually able to get a job at the end of it. So some of the benefits of this statewide credential is that the most important one is that there's occupation relevancy, which makes the content cost effective, because it will be shared among all the colleges. The system office nor the Innovation Center awards credentials. And so the credential awards will be provided by the colleges that serve these students. And then we have an ability to make sure that the training delivery is flexible. So it can be done in person, it can be done on a virtual platform, or in a hybrid version of both. And it can really exist anywhere across the state. Most important for us is that it will bridge our non-credit to credit programs. And that's where the articulated credit comes into play. So it's an incentive for students to be able to upskill, and for business to be able to send their students to us to be able to do that for them or on their behalf. We do have a website, and for right now, we are advertising some of the courses that we're in the process of creating. Remember that these are Alabama business courses. And so for any of you interested, you should visit our site, and over the next month, you'll see this change in tremendous ways, because we'll be adopting all of the programs during pilot year of October of this year to October of next year. We're anticipating being able to build and start training for 20 programs that are similar to the butcher training. So if you visit the website, you can kind of keep up to date on exactly which programs are being produced. And then when the training is available, you'll be able to see that, so that the dates of offering and where they're going to be trained will be something that this website maintains. If you are a business association or you're just a company that would like to know information about this, then there's a form on there you can fill out. If you're a participant interested in participating in training like this, there's a form you can fill out, and we'll contact you to let you know and keep you updated. But for now, if anyone has any questions, you can reach out to me. My email address is here, or Dr. Cox, whose email address is on the right-hand side of the screen. But thank you very much. We're very excited. It's a lot of work, and we are very eager to get this going for the state of Alabama.
Well, thanks, Mara. I appreciate that. Now, is Chris not joining this morning?
He was not able to join, so
okay.
He sends his regards.
You handled it very well. It was very interesting, very exciting to hear. It's great news. So we certainly need those employees with the credentials to get those jobs. So we'll look forward to continued progress on this. I want you to come back and update us here in a few months. Tell us how it's going. Okay.
We certainly will. Happy to do that.
All right. Thank you so much. I understand you're headed home this afternoon. Be careful in that storm.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Okay. Now, I'd like to turn the program over to Mr. Tony Wojciechowski, who is the Director of Human Resources for Hyundai Power Transmission. Tony, you ready?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Good morning. Yeah, thank you so much for allowing us this time to share some of the things that challenges we've received over the past year related to COVID, and some of the many people we've partnered with, the things we've learned. I think one of the premises we operate under is all of us are smarter than any of us, and the presentation we'll make today are things we've learned and support we've received from AIDT, Nick Moore, Donnie Jones, the HR Association, so many people. And, you know, we receive information and updates from everyone and some of the things we've done. And we continue to share what we've done and try to be successful in finding people. A little about Hyundai Power. Hyundai Power was a new facility in Montgomery, Alabama, started in 2010. We opened the doors November 18, 2011. We manufacture large transformers. The North American power grid is 70% obsolete in the power grid for transformers. We're one of 5 companies in North America that produce the transformers needed to keep the power grid operational. So we're part of the Homeland Defense essential industries we never close. Can't close. If the 5 manufacturing sites in the U.S. produce at full capacity, we can only produce 10% of what's needed to supply the power grid with large transformers. These transformers are not what you see on the power poles that flow out in the thunderstorm. These weigh 200,000 to 800,000 pounds. They stand 30 foot tall, and they're giant, and they produce giant amounts, or they regulate giant amounts of electricity from any source that electricity is generated, whether it's running water over a dam, spinning a turbine, whether it's nuclear, whether it's wave energy, wind energy. That energy has to be regulated before it goes on the power grid, and that's what we do. We had approximately a $44 million expansion just prior to COVID, and we're in the process working with AIDT to add 75 people. And we're making great gains with that. And then when COVID hit, is our slide up there? Go back. You notice our slide, since that time, I think us and many other people have experienced gigantic amount of turnover. And we were almost 400 people. We dropped down to 320. We had like 60, 70 people walk out immediately after COVID hit and federal unemployment was announced. It became quickly more advantageous to stay at home than it did to come to work. So we lost a great amount of people who resigned work and filed for unemployment. Since that time, we've been struggling to get back to full employment, but I must say AIDT has been a godsend in that. Without AIDT, we would have had to add 10, 15 people on our staff to maintain the employment levels we're at now. When unemployment reached in the 4% level, and the high 3.9% levels, that pool of people normally are people in that pool for the main part, not everyone, but have very low skill, have bad attendance, and just are not the people that we need in the things that we do. We can train, we can teach the people to do what we do. We have no assembly lines in our process. We're going to show in just a minute how we get to where we are. But if you notice the slide, we hired 89 people, we turned over 101, and it wasn't because the people couldn't do the work. What we experienced was people would not come to work. If we can locate a person with a positive attitude and good attendance, we can train that person to be an essential member and train in skills. We have a 5-year apprenticeship program that every member enters as they enter into our process. Our customers love that. We train, we track, we're going to show that in a minute. But we take people with virtually no skills. If you can read a tape measure, we can teach you how to become a skilled tradesperson at Hyundai Power Transform. And we've been doing this since the beginning. Long ago, we learned we were not going to find skilled tradespeople. So we look for people with a positive attitude and hopefully good attendance. If we have those 2 attributes, we're set. You know, times have changed so drastically over the last 10 years. When we opened the plant in 2011, for example, we had a job fair in Millbrook. We had 2,400 people attend the job fair. The police were in the parking lot directing traffic. We had to send 850 people over to Wetumpka for the afternoon session. And this last year we had a job fair. We had 3 people show up in Millbrook, 2 in Wetumpka, 1 in Greenville, and I think 1 or 2 at the Montgomery job fair. So times have changed. The process of recruiting people has had to change to keep up with that. You know, what were some of the causes of this for us and some of our, you know, people we discussed with in the HR Association? The federal employment was a huge deal. I'm sure it helped many people, but it also encouraged many people not to work. The people that are left in the small unemployment pool, lacking soft skills, lacking transportation is a huge issue for people in rural areas, not having transportation to get back and forth to work. Attendance was, we lost probably of the people we lost, 100 of 160 that we hired. Attendance was 95% of that, just not coming to work. Not that the people couldn't do the job, they could. We can train them, but they didn't come to work. So, you know, we discussed with the HR group, we discussed with Nick Moore, we discussed with Donnie Jones, Kevin with AIDT, Stinson Kennedy with AIDT. Ed Castile's been very great through this entire thing, helping us with support from AIDT. We increased wages $2 an hour. So we now, you know, across the board, hourly wages go to 14 to 15 entry. People are going to increase their wages $2 a year till they get to 18 or 19. Then it's going to be $1 a year till they get to 25. The training, we're going to discuss that in a minute. We have one of the most innovative training programs. Our training manager, Darius Butler, sitting to our left, he does a wonderful job of training. And we're becoming flexible, where at one time, for many years, we looked at attendance as an essential function of the job, and most employers do. We have changed our thought process somewhat now to allow up to six points or 6 times out in the first 90 days to still be employed. Previously, we looked at 3 times, but we're hoping that that helps people with transportation and for any other reason. If we can get them through 90 days, maybe we can keep them 6 months. If we can keep them 6 months, maybe we can keep them a year. Our bonus system, we have a strong bonus system. It's paid quarterly. Our members can achieve $1,500, $2,000 a year in bonuses for safety, quality, productivity, and attendance. So, you know, we try to incentivize all the things that we need to do, especially the attendance. And we're upskilling internally and externally. So as you can see, one of the things that Darius has done in the training department, last year AIDT came to us and said, we'd like you to look at this new process we have with virtual reality training. And said, oh, well, here's another thing, really don't have time, but since you're asking, we'll do it. I couldn't have been more wrong. The virtual reality training that AIDT has implemented has been essential in adding to our existing training program and teaching people and attracting people also. We're now using that as part of our advertisement to attract younger people to see that work's not hot, grimy, grungy. It's actually air conditioned. It's actually technical. It's things that people enjoy doing. You know, and the virtual reality training has so many aspects. When you're training with virtual reality, it allows you to train for dangerous situations in advance before the person's trained in a real life situation. Darius spent almost a year in helping develop a crane training program. Well, our crane, it's not a 10, 20, or 30 ton, which we have those, but we have a 400 ton and a 300 ton crane. That's 800,000 pounds we're lifting. So this allows our internal crane operators to virtually operate that crane, learn to inspect that crane before they actually have to touch the button on that crane where people's lives could be in danger. So that's a great tool that Darius and Transfer VR developed for us internally. Also, they have many CAM programs. And what are some of the ones? Lockout, tag out, safety, precision measurement. So many people today can't read a tape measure because they've had no reason to read a tape measure. But in any aspect, math's important, measurement's important. So teaching some of these skills. And the good thing about virtual training is once you learn a segment, you can't go to the next segment until you verified you've learned that segment, which like in a classroom, if you sit there and you may or may not have got what the instructor was teaching, you can't move to the next level in virtual training until you have pass the test for that level of training. So that, and if you see, these are the people in our pre-employment training and some of their scores. So you can see not everybody's 100%, but most of the people have to learn at a rate which we can see what they've learned, and that's excellent. You know, one of the things that HPT did, and our President Kim has been very supportive of innovation. Everything we've asked for and the ability to maintain employment here this time, he's supported. One of the things that's been a long time training of Hyundai Power is called the Circle of Skills, which each department, the tasks are broken down into individual tasks, and each person must learn these tasks and to be a C level, B level, or A level in their career. This normally takes about 5 years of us. So, you know, retaining people and not having turnover is critical in learning to build a transformer. There's no assembly lines in our process. It's very skill driven. We obtained this from Bill Taylor at Mercedes years ago. We asked, what you got for training tool that you could give us? And actually AIDT developed the Circle of Skills for Mercedes. Bill was kind enough to loan it to us. So, and the system works very easy to see, very easy to know where a person is. A quarter of a circle means I can do this job with supervision. A half circle means I can do this job with minimal supervision. 3/4 of a circle means I can do this task with no supervision. And if I have a full circle, I'm qualified to teach this task. So it's easy to see where anyone in any department or any group stands in their training at any time. And our customers like this. It's a great tool for us to see where we need to upskill people, skills people have, what jobs to put people on based on the complexity of the job. So, you know, we were apprenticing people A, B, and C level long before, you know, this was even being talked about, but it was to our benefit. So we can take a person with low skills. We can bring that person's skills to a high level. If the person will master good attendance and they will master a positive attitude. And I think this has got something that we've talked about with Nick, Donnie Jones for a long time. Is over in Donnie's area, they start in grammar school, starting to talk about attendance and starting to talk about attitude, positive attitude, being engaged. If we have this starting at the lowest levels of the school system, when people get to the point where they're ready to go into the job market and industry, we can teach those people. We'd love to have people pre-skilled, pre-trained, but you know, that may be a long way off, and any level that's acceptable, we're glad to have it. But if we have people that come to work on time, come with a positive attitude, we can train that person to be in society, and we pay them a good wage. Our people will make from $35,000 to $70,000 a year working on assembly line, not assembly lines, but working in production. We don't have assembly lines. So, you know, it's a good, you know, some of our 4-year degree people start out in the mid-40s. So, but, you know, it's a great career opportunity. I think we can push this more at the high school level to get people into Trenton. We've had a great relationship with Trenton. I was telling Tim, my grandson, Josh Farley's there registered in the maintenance program today. You know, I want him to move through this process, and you know, we're short on maintenance people. We have lost 12 in the last 2 months. It was a bidding war for maintenance skills, and we're all paying in the 20s, but some people are paying in the 30s now. You know, and it's a bidding war to keep people, but you know, benefits, we totally increase benefits constantly. We have 10 paid holidays, we have 10 paid vacation days, 3 personal days for people starting out. Great 401k program with a match. One of the best medical programs in the state of Alabama with a $300 out-of-pocket maximum every year. Not many programs have that. The company pays 70% of the health and dental. Our dental covers caps, crowns, and implants. You know, we go to the extreme on benefits, and there's more benefits. 2 times annual salary life insurance. You know, if we can keep someone 1 year, normally we can keep them. It's just keeping them that first year. So, you know, that's where we're struggling. But we've changed a lot of things. We've become more flexible. We've increased wages. We've increased benefits. But it's a daily opportunity to find the people we need, and it's not just us. It's everyone. So we're all in this thing together. And we're always open to suggestions for anybody that has ideas. We're always open to listen. But with that, I think I'll end it here and say thank you for the time.
Well, Tony, thank you so much. That was a very interesting presentation, and you've highlighted the points of what a lot of people are experiencing on this, trying to fill these jobs. It sounds like I've got a great program down there, and just keep plugging at it. And I think it's going to help you in the long run. So we'll ask you back soon. I think we're running short on time today, so I want to jump right in to the next presentation. And filling in for Nick Moore this morning, his assistant, John Gilchrist of the Governor's Office of Education and Workforce Transformation. John, are you ready?
I am ready.
All right, the floor is yours, sir.
Righty, good morning, everybody. As mentioned, I am here. I work with Nick Moore in the Governor's Office of Education and Workforce Transformation, where I am a policy analyst. And yes, I will be reviewing the Alabama survey of the underemployed and the unemployed. As soon as I can share my screen here, I wanted to show you all a quick PowerPoint. All right. And here we are. So we have the Alabama survey of the underemployed and the unemployed. And as we take a first look at the first slide of the current unemployment status, we see that last year, almost half of respondents weren't looking for work because of COVID-19. Now we see that less than 1/4 of people are in that boat. So that's when we take a look at that, and we can see those differences, and it's showing September, March, and of course, you can see how those numbers have changed and progressed. So when we take a look in what industries were worked when people were last fully employed, from this particular slide, we can see that the most impacted industries overall were manufacturing, hospitality, and tourism, along with human services and marketing. So that can give us a clue into, what industries were hit hardest by COVID, since those were the top number of last industries that people had when they were working. So it can give us a look into what type of jobs that COVID could have hit. Also, the reasons for and underemployment we can look and see that the top reason that participants had for or underemployment was that work is unavailable or hard to find. And the second top reason was that many wanted to stay home because of COVID-19. And the third top was that they lacked the necessary skills, qualifications, or education. So we have a lot of ways we can fill in to kind of narrow those reasons down, especially the last one, lacking necessary skills, qualifications, or education. We're currently working to do that by getting credentials and making sure that people have what they need to have to enter the workforce. And of course, as COVID kind of handles and fluctuates, and then, that will kind of, may over time, depending on how things go, disseminate, and then the work is unavailable or hard to find. Well, if they have the skills and qualifications they need, then that would take care of a large part of that reason. So that is what we have. And then 80% of respondents plan on looking for a job in the next 12 months. So if you ask me, that is a pretty good amount of people that plan on looking for a job in the next 12 months. So it definitely does show that, we're headed in the right direction with this. So when we look at the value of respondents for employment, or the reason as to why they want to go into employment, is that the main motivation that they had was more money and more stability. And there seems to be a slight shift from how much an employee makes to being concerned with stability and consistency. So meaning that an employee would much rather have more stability and more consistency, almost to, a high or large pay. So, stability and consistency really plays a major role into the values of employees and their respondents. So as we can see, when it comes to the most willing to retrain or change industries to find employment, from this whole entire graph, we can get that respondents are willing to take steps to find employment. They're willing to go through the steps, the qualifications they need, whether that means getting a credential or maybe taking a training and class. They're willing to do that to find employment. They are willing to take steps to find employment. And once again, as we can see, respondents, they prefer, oops, I changed that. A long-term commitment. So that is what we can see here, that they do prefer short-term training to a long-term commitment. So if you can get, those credentials or those classes, if you can get it in a short term, that's what most of our respondents are looking for. And in short-term versus a long-term commitment, it could be that perhaps due to the pandemic's lasting impact on personal or in-personal interaction, fewer respondents agree that they have easy access to education or training they need. So that is an area that we have to look at. Many people feel that they don't have the access to the training, they don't have the access to the certification or licensure that they need. So that is what also we have taken from the short-term training versus long-term commitment PowerPoint. And then also, last but not least, this is just kind of ending it on a positive note. 59% of respondents have read, seen, or heard of the AlabamaWorks program. So that's really good. And that means that, we're headed in the right direction. Even though we still have some work to do, we are headed in the upwards direction when it comes to workforce. So thank you. And that is the end of my presentation for the Underemployed and Unemployed survey.
Great, John, did a great job. Thank you so much for your report. And it's clear we must continue providing flexible, skills-based post-secondary opportunities that folks need and want in order to fully recover from the COVID-19. So I saw the 80% that want to get a job in the next 12 months, but I think we need 100% of them want the job right now. That'll help people like Tony, wouldn't it, Tony? So anyway, well, we run over today a little bit, which is not unusual for us, but I'd like to keep on time. I want to thank each of our guests again today. Your messages were timely and informative, and I invite each of you to come back and update us on your progress during the following year. I also invite everyone to join us at 9 a.m. on September 20th of this year for our next AlabamaWorks webinar. So until then, please stay safe and let us know